In the controversy over immigration, today the Supreme Court voted to keep in place Title 42. This gives the government power to automatically expel undocumented migrants seeking asylum. The controversial Trump-era policy was put in place early on in the pandemic. Well, today the Supreme Court extended last week's temporary stay. Under the court's order, the case will be argued in February, and the stay will continue until the justices decide the case. So for more on this, let's bring in Jessica Levinson from Loyola Law School. Jessica, thank you so much, Professor, I should say, for being with us tonight. If you could, in the simplest of terms, explain to us the meaning of today's ruling.
I think you just did, and Jessica is fine. So what we have is the Supreme Court in a ruling 5-4. They issued an order saying that Title 42 is going to stay in effect. That means that it will be much easier to expel people who are trying to seek asylum, particularly at the border. And the legal question that the court is going to hear, as you mentioned, in February on expedited briefing will be whether or not 19 GOP-led states can actually intervene in this case and defend Title 42. What they're saying is maybe there's not a public health emergency at the border anymore, but we need this policy because there will be an influx in undocumented workers and asylum seekers coming in, and we have no way really to absorb that number of people.
We've been following this closely, having reporters there along the border, including our Bill Malusian. He spent a lot of time down there. We've seen all the people waiting to cross the border in just the last few weeks. What happens to them now?
So the current policy is in effect, and the people who thought that this particular policy would expire and that it would be easier for them to come and seek asylum and wait while their cases were processed, that is not the case. For the foreseeable future, it will be very difficult for those people who, again, are seeking asylum to cross the border and remain in this country while their cases are being reviewed. That means a lot of people will stay in understatement, but less than ideal circumstances for the foreseeable future.
We must talk about the fact that the conservative, Trump's first appointment, in fact, to the court, Neil Gorsuch, he sided with the 3 liberal justices. You mentioned that 5-4 vote. He voted against a Trump-era policy. He said this, let's throw this up there on the screen. He said, "We are a court of law, not policymakers of last resort." So as you mentioned, they'll argue the case in February with a ruling potentially not until next June. Given today's 5-4 ruling, and given what Gorsuch said today, what does today's ruling say for what we could expect to hear in June?
So what we're going to hear in February primarily will be whether or not those 19 GOP-led states can actually intervene and defend against the policy. I think what we see, and those are the arguments we'll hear, and that's the case that will be decided. Now, in terms of the merits of the case itself, I think what we see Neil Gorsuch saying in that line is, not it. Basically, this isn't our role. We're not policymakers, we're judges, and if the next administration wants to wind down this policy, then I don't want to get involved in that. So it will be really interesting to see when the court does hear the case, how all of these different legal and political threads weave together, and whether or not we do have not the typical kind of 6-3, or in this case, 5-4 division.
Okay, well, you broke it down for us. We appreciate you always. And I respectfully, Professor Jessica Levinson from Loyola Law School, thanks so much for being with me tonight.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.